Guys, welcome to another episode of Rennch. I'm Michael. I'm working on a 1969 Porsche 911 with a Subaru twin-turbo EZ30R swapped into it. Today, we're going to do a bunch of stuff on that car. I'm trying to get my braking system dialed in, and I need to weld a plate to the chassis of the car so I can bolt the pedals in, but I can't do that until I measure how far the pedals need to be from the seat. But I can't do that until I assemble the seat. So we're going to start with assembling the seat. By the way, I'm having such a hard time talking. I've just gotten 2 implants in the back of my mouth, and I keep biting my tongue. I told you talking, I guess as well. Anyway, so I've got to assemble the seat. I've got to dial in my new stainless steel reservoirs and get the lines, which are -3 AN lines, from the reservoirs to the pedals. Once I establish where they're going to be, that would be the ultimate goal of this particular episode. And you'll also notice I'm holding my phone again instead of using my Canon camera. It's because when I was doing the thrash to get the engine to the lit show a few weeks ago, the actual quality of this camera is so much better than my Canon. So I'm actually going to use it, and I'm waiting for a DJI microphone setup. So right now you're hearing the audio from the actual phone, but I'm hoping that while I'm shooting this video, my DJI stuff will show up and I'll be able to Bluetooth wirelessly with a nice lapel mic on. So new camera setup for now. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully you guys dig it. Let's get into it. You may notice I'm still in my foyer. That's because the first part of this video is going to be done in my foyer. I have to assemble the beautiful Shield Man seat I got a couple of weeks ago. And about this company, they are so period correct and old school and cool. They make seats that'll fit any of our 911s, not only kind of modern ones that have bolsters and like back support like the ones I'm putting in the touring, but beautiful. I think they're 101 is perfect for like an early RSR or an RS kind of clone. It just looks the part. It's a great looking seat. So please, I advise you, pop on over to shieldman or mon.com and have a look at their seats. And let's put this bad boy together right here in my foyer. Seatbelt mount, which I'm really excited about since I have no brackets in the Blasphemy build. So I can actually have seatbelt mounting points now, which will make a huge difference when the time comes. Particularly cool because they have all this adjustment where you've got like different back support and lower back support. If you're on like a long drive, you can tweak this thing until it completely customizes to your back. Now, truth be told, I tried to make this video like a week and a half ago, but I couldn't. And that's because I was missing some stuff in the interior of my car. Those of you with astute eyes will be able to see what I'm talking about in this picture. So I reached out to another one of the sponsors of the build, and I got to tell you, there's nothing these guys make that's sexy. There's nothing like anodized and beautiful welds and something you're going to brag about on Instagram. But what they make is literally all the invisible pieces you need for your car. Lenses and seals and relays and brackets and all kinds of stuff that we all need for our Porsches. And that company is Euro Parts. Now, you guys have probably seen this on like Pelican, if you guys are shopping on Pelican, but Euro makes just a ton of stuff. So I reached out to my buddy Drew and I said, Drew, I was just trying to bolt my brand new fancy seat in my car and I can't, because what I'm missing is the factory bracket that bolts to the actual chassis that then the seat bracket bolts to. I just never had it and didn't realize I didn't have it. I'm out there in the middle of the parking lot in Home Depot at SEMA 2 years ago, making custom brackets for my car, not realizing I was just missing an OEM part, and that's why the brackets I had weren't fitting. Duh. But here's what I got. So I got some door seals, which I needed, Porsche engine mounts, and these things work for engines and transmissions. If you have a weird engine or you've got a weird vibration in your car, just grab a couple of new engine mounts. You'll be shocked how much better your car drives. So I got some new engine mounts. And I got a couple of minor stuff, like some brackets for like a 996 shifter that I'm going to be using. But this bad boy, which I didn't realize I needed until I needed it. And what this thing does is it bolts to the actual chassis and allows you to bolt a seat bracket to it. So we're going to install this right now. One thing I'm going to do really quickly is just kind of re-tap all of these. You know, this car's been sandblasted and stuff, so there's just some grit in the threads, and I'd rather have like a nice interface. Thank you, Euro Parts. That is rad. Get that a little wipe down. Looks friggin' awesome. Nice new metric hardware, zinc bolts, zinc washers. Let's go. I have to say it's a bit exciting. In a second, I'm going to sit in the seat, and it's going to be the first time my interface is, you know, somewhat complete, and I can see what the car is going to actually feel like, which is pretty rad. Oh, yeah. Wow, that's freaking cool. Wow, okay. Wowie, wowie. Maybe one. Oh, God. The seats are so smooth. They're so smooth. Wow. That feels so good. How about the bolsters? What do we do here? Let's see. Oh, yeah. That's cool. Oh, yeah, a little lower back. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, that's about it right there. Shifter should be here-ish. Okay. Well, so what this means now, I can get a perfectly accurate gauge of where the pedals need to be. That was the whole point of this endeavor of installing the seat. So now I have my interface. I know exactly where I'm going to be. Now I can correctly place the pedals fore and aft, and with any luck, get the sound deadening off, get some grinding of the paint, and tack them to the floor so that I can then bolt the pedal assembly to it. So that's kind of the fabrication part of this episode right now. Yeah. Captive nuts. Okay, so you've just seen me weld some captive nuts on my base plate here, and I've just spent the last 20 minutes or so finagling so I can get this thing centered and aligned, and I think I have it where I want it right now. I think it's pretty square. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tack on the right-hand side. And then I'm going to actually drill a hole on the left-hand screws. See if I can affix them to the chassis underneath. I may even weld a captive nut underneath. Okay, here's the update. I've got the plate tacked on that side, and then I've just drilled 2 holes all the way through the bottom of the chassis on that side. So I'm going to mount the pedal back up, and the bolts will be through the floor on that side, these 2. I'm hoping I can kind of grind out and weld the nuts on underneath, so I have captive nuts underneath, and then I should be ready to mount this thing up. All right, we are in here. So I don't have enough room to mount the right master cylinder. So I have to push a hole in the chassis, and I'm actually going to plug the other ones. But looks like we're pretty good. We're pretty solid. I'm going to try to sit in the car. That took hours, by the way. That was quite an involved process to get that right. The nuts on the underside of the car are ready to be welded in and captive on the underside of the car, which, by the way, Porsche did. They have captive nuts all over the underside of this, so I'm not super worried about it. All right, I'm back after a very productive day 1. Since you've last seen me, I've squirted a bit of Worth undercoating on my captive nuts, which are still captive and still nutsy. Ultimately, the goal is to run the AN lines from the reservoirs to the master cylinders. The problem is the rightmost master cylinder interferes with the firewall. So I got to drill a hole in the firewall. Eventually, I will plug all the different holes that are there, because there's a whole bunch of them, including the factory holes. But I've got to figure that out. So I'm going to measure some stuff up, probably with a Sharpie, get myself a hole saw that fits the end of the master cylinder and pop it through. I do have a bunch of grommets, so I'm hoping I can put the hole and then put a grommet in so it looks like a nice factory setup. So that's the next plan. Drill a hole in the firewall, bolt everything back up, and then start the process of running the AN lines. By the way, I'm not sure the last time I mentioned this, but I'm just a dude in a garage. I'm like not an expert in any of this stuff. So when you see me doing this kind of thing, I've never done it before. I'm completely going in blind to this, hoping it will work. So far, it's been pretty good. But, you know, my point is that you guys can do this. It's the whole point of this channel, is that I'm just some dude that buys tools at Harbor Freight and Home Depot and manages to put a pretty cool car together. So anyway, let's get into this. Okay guys, we are finally to the main event of the actual entire episode, which is running these stainless lines. Now, I've got a whole spread of things from Racetronics, and that's where I get all my AN fittings and a bunch of other stuff. And what I've done here is I've got 6 90 degrees, 6 45 degrees, 3 straights, and 3 bulkhead fittings. I'm a little annoyed about the bulkhead fittings because normally they come with the nuts that go on the bottom side, but for whatever reason, these did not. So I can't secure them to my little plate. Neither here nor there, I'll be able to do that down the road. I'm gonna set up my 45s, and hopefully my calculations worked okay. I think that the 45s are supposed to be here, and these should connect to the reservoir. And then underneath, I've got the 90s that should connect to the brake lines themselves. Well, I may have made a miscalculation here. I've got one hose in, and let me take you through the process of making the next couple. This is it. Actually, it looks really good. To do that, we start with this, which is unscrewing the end. So now I have the end and the ferrule that's inside the end, that little kind of steel looking part. And I do the same thing to the other end. This is the end that's going to go in the reservoir. So now I have two 90-degree fittings with the ends off, and you just have a little bit of hose. So what we do is we push the hose onto the fitting, screw this fitting where it's supposed to be, use our Sharpie to determine the length. This is going to be a really short one. Okay, for small stainless lines like this, I actually just use these cutters, which work pretty well. Give it a snip, and it kind of smushes the line because there's a plastic inner here. So I use this screwdriver to kind of reform it. All I'm doing is I'm putting the screwdriver in, then I'm using this pair of pliers to go around it. So now I have like a really nice, perfect hole again. So both ends of the fitting now are on the hose. And what we do is we take the flat end of the screwdriver. What has to happen is that this little metal aluminum ferrule has to fit over the plastic but under the stainless steel. So it kind of gets sandwiched between the two. So we use our screwdriver here to kind of pull the stainless steel away from the inner liner as such. I'll try to show you this in a second. And then you push the ferrule on just like that. Let's see, you can see that. So now the ferrule's on the inside. It's over the plastic, under the stainless. Of course, your hand usually slips and you stab yourself with a little stainless wire, and that's awesome. And in theory, you've got a pretty sweet line to connect. All right, finally got the three lines on, looking super cool. I gotta say though, the lack of the locking nut on the back side of the pass-through fitting or the bulkhead fitting really proved to be a huge pain. Like, it really made things difficult on me. But there they are, looking really good. And now we work on the inside. Okay, I'm back for day 3. And first and foremost, it's crazy how long some of this stuff takes. I'm literally trying to run brake lines, and I'm on day 3 of recording this video. And it's hours and hours and hours. But I've made a very considerable design change from yesterday, and it was fueled by 2 things. Number 1, the bulkhead fittings I got, for whatever reason, normally they have a nut that goes on them. And I don't know why, but mine didn't have them. So they were just kind of loose. I went to my local hardware store that has everything. I actually bought a couple of nuts that work, but they're just too big and bulky. You really need the nice aluminum nuts that come with these things. They were just sort of all crammed together and it didn't look good. Then I had the thought while I was there, oh, wait a second, I've already got this removable plate. So what I was worried about is being able to disconnect the lines and remove them for whatever reason, if I had to do something, versus having like one line that would pass through a thing that would never be able to be removed. But the whole plate removes. The other reason is it's less interfaces. It's less places to leak. And, you know, I had a fitting here, a bulkhead fitting, and then another fitting here, and then another fitting here, and another fitting here. So I'm getting rid of a ton of fittings by just going straight through. So the plan is these connect to the reservoirs. This is going to pass through the plate with a grommet. It's plenty flexible. Go straight down and then arc this way to connect to the pedal. So I think overall this is going to be a much better and cleaner solution, a lot less option for failure. And yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it, but we're getting there. We're so close. Now I will eventually get a new plate from Send Cut Send. I'll laser cut it and make it all pretty, but this one will have to do for now. So we feed these through. Alrighty then. So here's where we are underneath. I'm going to cut each one of these to length. And there's so much on and off and 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 on and off. I will cut them all to length and then pull the whole assembly off again so I can do the fittings on the bench. And then I can bolt the entire thing back on again. All right. Well, that was a really challenging logistical issue. But it's in. Looks really cool there. I'll figure out some way to kind of secure it with like a triple clamp or something up against the wall, which would be sweet. And then as it leads out of the car, it just feeds just like that into the reservoirs, which looks awesome. And that is probably the simplest solution to this. Well, that was a ton of work to get to this point. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to pull the pedals one more time for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I want to finish welding up the bracket that I've welded to the car. I need to cut the carpet and put the carpet down. I need to paint the bracket and the plate that the pedals mount on. And I'm actually going to change the pedal hardware to all Allen bolts because it's just easier to get in there and open them up because it's kind of tight. And then theoretically, I can reinstall all of it and it should look nice and function the way it's supposed to. All right, we are finally ready to put this back in. I've got some beautiful new Allen bolt hardware in there. Everything's painted up. I got the base plate painted. I've got this bad boy painted. And it's time to bolt it in and screw everything together and call it a day. All right, got the carpet cut. So now it fits nicely over the bracket. I still have to drill these 2 holes. I got to locate the holes to put the bolts through, but we are pretty much almost ready to bolt it back together. To cut these holes in the carpet, I'm going to I've never done, but I've seen done. This is an M8 Allen bolt. I'm going to cut the head of the bolt off. And then I'm going to stick it in a drill and I'm going to sharpen it to a nice point, just like with a sanding disc or something like that, right? I can then thread it into the floor and it'll poke up exactly through the carpet where it's supposed to be. Because you know, sometimes it's really hard to kind of locate those kinds of holes. So I'm going to do that and then you can sort of, you know, if I had a grommet, I would stick it in there, but this should allow me to at least give like a precise location on the bolt, which is kind of cool. All right, so I don't know if this worked. It looked like it worked, but now I have this nice sharpened end, which is quite sharp, and I should be able to thread this into my captive nuts on the floor and then push the carpet down on it, and it'll poke a hole through that I can then sort of expand and then get a bolt through. Ingenious. Get this stuff out of here. Woo! My goodness. Okay, finally we have interface. There they are in all their glory. Looking super dialed. I can't get to the pedals. They're actually too far away in the garage right now, but looks pretty awesome. You know, part of the challenge of doing a fully custom car is that it requires fully custom attention every step of the way. This was a lot more technical and involved and really a pain in the butt than I expected, but I'm super proud of how it turned out. I think it looks amazing with the carpet in there and the lines run. So huge thanks to Shield Man for the seats. They look incredible. I will probably put the second seat in once I have fully sorted out my shifter situation, just because it'll give me a little bit more room. Thanks to Wilwood for the pedals and the reservoirs, and huge thanks to Euro Parts, URO Parts. Look for them anytime you're buying Porsche parts at Pelican or anywhere else you buy your stuff. They are everywhere and make amazing stuff to get these cars going. So thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next time. You guys keep on rocking. it.